Okay.
Okay. When did you begin your practice here in Medina, and why did you choose this area?
Um, we got here in 1978. I had been in the Army at Fort Sill, having gone through advanced ROTC at the University of Akron, and knew I had 2 years to give, but received deferments for medical school and residency. So medical school at Ohio State, and then residency in Roanoke, Virginia. I was the only resident north of the Mason-Dixon line in Virginia during that time. And then at Fort Sill, kind of met back up with Mark Spielman, because he had taken a different path after Ohio State and gone to California, and then ended up in Oklahoma at Fort Sill. So we got together and decided that we would go into practice together, since he was from down toward Mansfield. And I looked around to places to practice. Always wanted to come back to Ohio, near family and friends, since we were from Cuyahoga Falls and Akron. And looked around and decided on 3 different places to look at: Mount Vernon, Dover, New Philadelphia, and Medina. And it was a hard decision, but the right decision. Thoroughly enjoyed it in Medina. Chose Medina because of Medina Community Hospital, and a place where I could practice the whole scope of medicine. So doing OB and newborns and pediatrics, where I could assist at surgery, admit to the hospital, to do everything which I had been trained for. And I was fortunate enough to meet Bob Smith, who was a physician here in the 50s, 60s. He was just leaving town, and he graciously said, "You could take over my office space, you can have my records." So I had a built-in practice when I started. And Robertson and Miller, doctors here at that time, said they would cover for me and I would cover for them. So it was really a perfect setup to practice in Medina. And we loved the community. It was only 20, 30 miles away from home, my parents and family. So that's why I chose Medina.
Good, good. It's interesting the changes you must have seen at Medina Hospital, going from Medina Community to Medina General, and obviously now to the Cleveland Clinic. What was your first impressions of the hospital?
Um, the hospital was small, but that's the way I wanted it. Didn't want a giant hospital. It was not exactly bare bones, but the ICU was pretty small, and the emergency room was sort of in a basement, and couldn't do a lot of testing. Had to send some tests out, like blood gases. You would do them in the ICU, and you would have to have them couriered to Akron to get the test done. But sure was a friendly place. Ed Hall was the administrator at that time, and he was really good and great at recruiting physicians. So, and it was interesting, the changes throughout the time I've been here to the hospital, with all the additions and the takeover by, shouldn't use that word, the takeover by Cleveland Clinic.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, or what did you witness in your own family practice specialties that you think was most significant changes over your tenure as a physician?
The record keeping seems to be one of the bigger changes. We would dictate our notes and have them typed out. So it was different than having the small cards that physicians kept their notes on and put them in paper files. And then, of course, came electronic records later on. And that was good and bad for me, not growing up with computers or being able to type. And so that definitely was one of the bigger changes, the computerized medical records.
Mhm.
I think when they first started, they weren't ready for prime time. And even now, they need to make changes
Mhm.
to make it more friendly to the physicians, I think.
Is there a specific case or memorable incident that you encountered in your practice that really sticks in your head?
A memorable case. Probably not at liberty to talk about the most memorable case. Um,
We understand that was some of the surprise answers were quite.
You'd have to edit that out.
Right, we understand. That's okay. We'll go on. Um, what changes, though, in medicine would you say saddens you the most currently?
It seems like it's much less personal. You've probably heard that from other people. Um, when I was doing the full scope of medicine, um, including deliveries of babies, um, now family physicians, the vast minority don't do that and don't practice in the hospital anymore. The hospitalists take over. But at Medina, I was able to do everything I wanted, and the staff at Medina Hospital was really good. The obstetricians would help you out, the surgeons would help you out. So there was a lot of cooperation at the hospital. So now I think the family physicians, partly because of the computer, um, don't have the personal touch with the patients. There's a lot more technology, which is good and bad. You're able to do a whole lot more testing. And now it seems like physicians rely much more on testing than they do on touching the patient, doing a physical exam. And so that is disappointing to a lot of patients and to me.
So, if you were to give advice to an aspiring physician, someone who's considering pursuing that occupation, what would be some advice you would give to them?
So touch the patient, look them in the eye, um, have personal conversations with them, and speak so they can understand it. And yeah, just take more time with them.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What do you see in the future of medicine? I mean, we all hear about the wonder drugs, the AI. How would you see the family practice or physician's role changing in the future?
I guess each generation talks about the good old days, and I don't see it changing the way I would like to see it. You touched on AI. I'm still not sure what that is. Doesn't seem that it would improve the personal touches of medicine. Computer is going to always be with us, I guess. Um, so the future of medicine, um, I'm not sure that it's going to be better. There's sure going to be reliance more on the physician extenders, like physician's assistants, nurse practitioners, and that's not bad. We had some really good quality nurse practitioners, physician's assistants. So I don't know. It's hard for me to predict those things.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think. Um, I don't know if you mentioned what motivated you to pursue an occupation in medicine.
Sounds corny, but when I was little, I got a medical kit for Christmas. And so at age 6, I practiced being a doctor.
The dog or kitty cat?
Yeah. And so it was just in my mind from grade school on, and it didn't change since I was successful in school. And I had some good mentors, I think. In childhood, we had a doctor in Cuyahoga Falls named Emmett Monroe, and he was, I think, the prototype family physician doing house calls in the 50s and early 60s, and a lot of awards in Ohio for being Physician of the Year. So he was instrumental as a good example. And later on, in medical school, we did a rotation called the Romance of Medicine. So for a month, I spent time with a physician in Logan, Ohio, pretty small town back then, and saw exactly what they did in a small town. And another time with Dr. Johnson in Johnstown, Ohio. So they reinforced my idea of being a family physician.
Interesting. We understand in the history of the county, many doctors, whether they had the official license or studied under another physician back in the 1820s, 1850s, it was not uncommon for doctors to learn that way. And good or bad, some assumed the title without necessarily all the depth training. But,
right. Sort of like an apprenticeship rather than
yes.
educational.
Yeah, we have lots of, our census records show an enormous number of doctors listed in the county up until 1950 and from 1850 to 1950. And we're just curious how all that would have transpired. But I think to your point, they may have studied under other physicians, kind of did maybe some minor things until they built their experience up. But they were, that's all we had. And it's interesting. From an historical society's viewpoint, we were just keen on talking to physicians and learning about your experiences, because I think they would have paralleled back 100 years ago. You would have found people learning in similar ways with maybe less technology, but that spirit of caring seemed to have carried through.
And you brought up Dr. Mansell earlier, and he was another one of the prototype family physicians in Medina.
Mm-hmm. We have his prescription pad right on the table next to you, and from what we've heard, he was an amazing physician, very compassionate, loaded with stories of his experience, and some doctors have shared some of those funnier stories they can repeat, and it was very interesting. Well, do you have other comments you'd like to share with us about the history of medicine and what, is there any other topics you wish to cover?
When I was looking for a place to practice, Medina as a community was very welcoming. So the physicians that were here, sort of recruiting me, took us out to dinner and showed us around town. And, Medina sort of sells itself in a lot of ways. Ed Hall was very welcoming, and Doctors Miller, Robertson, Dr. Mast was there to take us out to dinner. I think it was at the Oaks. So that was
nice place. Yeah, very nice place.
And they shared with us, realtors we could talk to and other people in town that we could get to know. So it was a very welcoming place. Gazette was good to put articles in the paper about us.
Mm-hmm. It seems to be a common theme we've heard, and sometimes being born and raised here, you kind of take it for granted. Mm-hmm. But from an outsider's viewpoint, coming into the community as yourself, that's kind of neat reinforcement of our culture and our community. And that's one thing on our history and our society tries to educate and emphasize it's the cultural things, the spirit of things is what makes the community so good. And we're really happy that when people visit our museums, they actually learn something about people who came before them. And likewise, we'll accumulate items today that somebody will be showing somebody in 50 years from now. So,
And growing up in the 50s, 60s, even 70s in college, Medina seemed like it was way far away and out in the sticks. I'd never been here until I started looking for a place to practice.
interesting. Well, the county has certainly grown since those times. We're over 180,000, 186,000 people now in our county, which is amazing. The number of physicians now required to serve that population, and still interact enough with the patients on a level that you'd like to see. So.
And the Cleveland Clinic has improved the hospital physically and technology-wise. The physician community, when I was practicing, was really pretty tight-knit, and we did things together. We had softball teams, we had racquetball league first thing in the morning. I remember also the doctor-lawyer golf outing. We were on good terms with the lawyers. So it was a fun place to work. Now I don't think a lot of the people who practice at the hospital live in the community. They come from elsewhere, put their time in the hospital, and then go back to their home. So not as many live in the community, which is not good in my opinion.
Okay.
Because it was neat to be in the community, run into people at the different stores and events in town, to really get to know people that way.
Well, and people recognize you and your fellow physicians in times of emergency. It's awful good to know who's available, who's right in the room or church or school or whatever might be the case. Football games, if there's an incident, I'm sure you're looked upon quickly as someone to summon and help. And I think that's a tremendous community service physicians often supply. I'm sure you come to events for other reasons, but sometimes when you're called upon, it's a great relief to people.
Yeah, it's happened, a lot of times in the past. I'm, at church a few times, people would have a problem, and the doctors who lived in the community, and there were a lot of people attending same church, St. Francis, and they would be able to help out people who had a problem.
I'm one of those ushers. That first thing I scan the crowd when I'm ushering is, okay, there's Toulousiac, there's Naples, there's Kase.
That's right.
I kind of do a quick scan of the audience to see just in case. And I have been one of those guys that has called upon our doctors in times when, we train on AEDs now and basic first aid, but there's nothing to replace a physician's competence being right there and so forth. Well, great. It's been great interviewing you. Dr. Jeff Kase will be compiling these stories, among others, and we thank you for your time and your insights, and I think it's going to turn out great.
Thank you. It made me think a lot of some old memories.
Yeah, that's what historical societies like to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
But it's been really interesting, and your comments do mirror many that we heard, and the community feeling in that hospital and being so close. When the medical buildings were built, finally being able to have your practice and be a short hop from the ER or where needed. And
if the surgeon had to get over to the hospital, or if you were delivering a baby, just to walk across the parking lot. But most of the time, they had babies at night, in the middle of the night.
I don't know if you ever knew Dr. Avery or Wolf in Seville.
Sure.
Avery was supposed to deliver my baby brother, and he had just had the driveway put in at his house in Seville, long kind of serpentine driveway. And my dad joked with my mom that, God, I hope he doesn't drop off that driveway with that big old Cadillac he was driving. And that's exactly what happened the night my brother was born. I'm not sure how he ever did get to the hospital. I guess the car probably got stuck being off the driveway, but
not horse and buggy at that time.
No, it wasn't a horse and buggy, but I think probably upset my mother a little bit. Yeah, I'm sure neighbors must have got him there in time. But.
Yeah, Avery and Wolf, and Dr. Austin was another doctor who was a real gentleman and a good obstetrician in town.
We used to joke about Wolf and Avery. That was our family physicians, and we'd go to the Seville office. They had the same block of wood holding up the edge of the sofa our whole life. I said, they didn't invest a lot in office furniture.
Right.
They were very not simple doctors, but they didn't seem to matter on those kinds of things.
Yeah,
so
that wasn't the important thing.
That's exactly right. And they were, of course, they made house calls back then. That's kind of a bygone era. But I think what we intend to do is, between our timeline, our audio, and our other excerpts, we'll assemble a very nice exhibit, and I hope it turns out good.
Yeah.
And I think all of your
one of the worst things that the hospital has had, and this probably has been mentioned, was the loss of OB. So that was sad for the community.
Jonathan Funk was really big on that one, of course, and so was
Felicia.
Yeah, and even Denny Robertson. He said, it is sad. You have to go so far to have a baby,
right? In
this day and age, and well, I'm sure there are a lot of different reasons for that decision. It's still, we don't have my nieces and nephews are now having children, and I'm often wondering how they're managing all that, whether through midwives or they live in different spots. They know where to go to get help.
I wasn't in on the decision making at that time, but it seems like it was a financial decision. OB didn't make the money for the hospital, and the stated reason was that smaller hospitals, if you didn't do a certain amount of deliveries, then there were more complications. But that really didn't apply to Medina, because we didn't have the complications as much as they were talking about. So yeah, that was a big loss.
Yeah, maybe someday somebody will rethink that. Who knows? But not in the cards, I don't think, right now. But
yeah, I can't predict that in the future.
Well, anyway, I think that pretty well wraps it up.
Okay.
And I'll take your microphone back before I walk out.